Because he
wants to date a 20-year-old.
Are you
Lily to go
discussing
out with me.
vacations and everybody have a good
Can't tell my
time
age
off?
because Lily won't go out with me.
Exactly.
You're online or
Just Lily, just kidding.
No, I know. I just heard my name. I'm like, what?
Just smile.
How is everybody? Where's Marina?
Wasn't that her who just went out the door?
Yeah, she said she'd be right
Oh,
back.
okay. Is that you, Marina?
Yes, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
all right, that's all right.
Hey, did you go to
So-
Florida?
I was.
Did you? Yeah. How was it?
Good. What? Oh, you still not with me? A
You
little
look
bit.
tan.
Yeah. You know.
What part?
Hollywood, Fort Lauderdale.
I'm going there.
I think you're going there.
I'm gonna skip.
Oh, no, you're going to skip school.
My husband gave me a check for my birthday, and I
School
did
vacation.
it after
Oh, yeah.
finals. Do we know when a final is in here?
No, but
It's not
I
up
think
yet?
last year it was on or around the 19th or something like that. Final start, wait a minute. Do I have final
I
start?
took my trip Saturday afternoon. Monday the 9th.
Final start. Study period is May 3rd through 8th. Finals are the 9th through the 20th. The 9th through the 20th. Usually mine is somewhere around the teens, like 16, 17, 19, something like that. I don't know if they'll just give me the exact same date that we had last year. And again, it's written on the syllabus, but remember that it's at 6 o'clock because you guys take it together, your class and the online class is about 20 of them, so. Yeah, well, we'll probably know in a few weeks. I know that the summer schedule is out. So probably the final schedule. When I say it's out, there's hard copies of it around in the cafeteria. Yeah.
You can have mine, because I'm not going this summer.
Okay, Sissy Harrison case. As I explained a few minutes ago, so the way we'll do this is we only have 3 attorneys. The attorney for Sissy, who's Ashley, attorney for DCF is Alana, and Alina, you're the attorney for the children. So very short, less than 5-minute openings I'll have you do. And then today, Alana, you'll call. Marina, you will be the first witness because you worked with Sissy ever since she was little until she became pregnant. Okay? Marina?
Yes.
Yes. So you'll do a direct examination of.
Talking so much.
You've been talking. Why?
I know, I'm going to be talking.
Oh, you're going to. Oh, it sounds like you're already losing your voice over it. Remember, direct questions, who, what, when, where, how, what happened next, what did you do next, that sort of thing. So Marina's pretty much your star witness because she knows that much about, about Sissy. And then we'll hear from Lily, but Lily, you've only been working with Sissy from when she became pregnant until the present time. And then your expert is Norman, the GAL, who recommends termination. And so after that, you'll rest. And then Ashley will call her witnesses, okay? So we have today and then we have Thursday to do this, all right? A parent protection case of the Harrison children. Let me hear from the mother for Sissy, your opening statement.
My name is
I'm sorry, no, I'm out of it today. The department opens and closes. Go ahead, Alana, you're first.
So today the department is moving to terminate Sissy's parental rights to the twins. Our goal is adoption, and we actually have the paternal grandmother of the twins has shown great interest in the adoption. So that is what we heard we need to do to get this adoption ball rolling.
Thank you. And now I'll hear from you, Ashley. Attorney for
My name is
Sissy.
Ashley Lord. I'm the attorney for Sissy Harrison. Sissy would like to get custody back of her twin daughters. She is willing to follow the plan that's been recommended by the investigator if allowed to do so.
Thank you. And Alina, you represent the twin?
Yes, Your Honor, I'm here to represent the interest of the newborn Carol and Sandy. And my role here is to to show that it's in the best interest of the children to be reunited back with her birth mother, Sissy. And we also prepared to show that department does not have evidence, clear and convincing evidence to prove that Sissy's an unfit mother, and it's in the best interest for her children is to be dispensed with consent to adopt.
Thank you. Let's just go off the record for one moment, and I know I said briefly, but when you do opening statements, what should you be doing? Anybody have general comments on what the purpose of an opening statement is?
Agreed upon facts. The facts that are not in dispute.
No?
Wouldn't it be?
Partly?
Kind of telling the judge what we want to take place today.
Partly?
What you would like to achieve?
Partly? Elizabeth? Everybody gets a turn.
Come on, jump in.
Get the pieces together.
I would have said what Norm had said was not stating some of the facts that pertain to your argument.
What are you getting ready for? Right after your opening, the judge is going to hear the trial, right?
So maybe you would say we're going to call this witness to the stand.
Exactly. So a lot of it has to do with your sort of summary of judge. You will hear that. The evidence will show, and I think Alina did it out of all of you. Hers was the best.
My opening statement was 2 pages, but
Oh.
you said only 10
Oh,
minutes.
okay, all right. So it's partly my fault because I said keep it short. But yes, in the context of the mock hearing, we don't have much time, so that is what you should be doing. Not only sort of outlining the burden of proof and the standard the judge should be using, but also introducing for the judge, giving the judge sort of a bird's eye view of what the judge will then hear. And from the department's point of view, the department should be saying, you will hear X, Y, and Z, and all of that will amount to clear and convincing evidence of current parental fitness, unfitness, to further the best interests of these 2 children and so forth. But, okay. So, let's go back on the record. Department's attorney, call your first witness.
Okay, we are first calling Marina, who is a TCF worker that worked with the Harrison family who moved to see early on in her life. Okay. So Marina.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You've been sworn in under oath already.
Yes.
Okay. So Marina, you had started working with Sissy around the time she was in the 1st grade, is that correct?
Yes.
Can you please just go into brief detail regarding what her home life was like, who was involved, and how that had affected her when you first met her?
Objection. Why should there be an objection
Who is
to that
she?
question?
Narrative.
Alana is the department's attorney, and should there be an objection, I'm sorry, to the form of the question? Kelly saying yes, tell us why.
Narrative.
Yes. Keep it short, and hopefully she'll also keep it short, but her answer will be a little bit more detailed than the question.
Okay, so just describe her home life.
That's also narrative. Describe
Can you
a specific question.
Why don't you bring her, sort of maybe take it chronologically, but when when Marina was first introduced to the family, and then she can answer that she was first introduced after there was an investigation, that mom was blah, 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 and then by you interjecting questions, she then tells the story. Okay?
Okay. So when were you first introduced to Sissy?
For the first time, Cece was at the age of 10. She was separated from her younger sisters, and DSF took care of these 3 children in the Harrison family.
I'm sorry, Marina, if you could just raise your voice a little bit more when you answer. Go ahead.
So why were you introduced to the family?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
Why?
Cece Harrison was born to Lorraine Harrison and Gary Sandler, who were living together but they were never very formally married. And her mother was substance, drugs and alcohol abuse in 13 years. And
Judge
then
had moved to strike. other side right now, so think about why is it an objection? And moving to strike that, the answer, as the witness is now speaking it.
Well, she's not qualified as an expert to say that
What was the question? Repeat your question.
it doesn't even pertain to the question, it's how she was introduced.
Yeah, but what was your, the question
I
was,
guess why she was introduced to the family.
right, right.
Okay,
So, and the answer started to become a narrative. Why she was introduced was because there was an investigation of abuse and neglect. But the answer became a narrative about the family. And I think I can understand why, because you want to tell, obviously, the history, that there was mother and father, the father was abusive, he left. So how can she do that?
I can say who was involved in Sissy's early family.
Well, wait a minute, because go back to where you were before. What was the question before you said why?
when? When did they become?
When were you introduced?
When were you introduced? And you said, what, Marina?
I said that the Department of Children and Family Services became involved with Harrison family after Cece's first grade school teacher filed the report of abuse.
Okay, all right. And then you said, and is that when you then said?
I
what?
didn't hear the part regarding the report. That was
Okay,
the part
all right,
that-
so now you know how to go,
Right, now, yeah.
what your next question should be. Okay, go ahead.
So now I wanted to say who was involved, who led to that report? Like who was involved in her family, like what were you investigating?
Whoa, too much.
Okay.
Too much.
Sorry, I don't know.
I'll help you for a second. What were the circumstances of that report?
It was a report about the abuse and neglect against Lorraine Harrison, who is the mother. And
In
I
what
want-
way? Go ahead. What should your next question be? She said abuse regarding the mother on the
Was the
children.
father also involved?
The father had left the family a couple of years beforehand, and
How many children were there?
Okay.
Cece is the oldest child, and she has two younger sisters.
How old were they at the time of this first report?
7th grade, so she was 6, 7 years old.
And were her sisters younger or older?
The sisters are younger. She's the oldest.
After that report came in, what happened next? If you have nothing else, if you don't know what question to ask,
Okay.
you could say what happened next, or what occurred next, or that sort of thing. So if the question was what happened next, Marina, take over from there.
Cece and her sisters were removed from their home, and they were placed with their great-grandmother, Carla Harrison.
Okay, now as a result of being separated from her sisters, being separated from her parents, did Sissy suffer any side effects?
She did, but she was not separated from her sisters at that point yet, because she was placed, she and her sisters were placed in the house of the great-grandmother. She was separated from her sisters only later on when she was 10 years old.
So what's happening now? What just happened? What just happened? Evidence-wise.
I provided too much of additional information because I couldn't answer that question. It was
The
relative to
question
different set of
that was
facts.
asked, number one, you sort of jumped ahead, and then you presupposed stuff not in evidence yet,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So one of the keys to direct examination, and I know sometimes it's very painful to hear direct examination too, but it is actually to go kind of step by step and let the judge, see in his or her mind somewhere, sort of the scenes. So the scene that the judge first saw was the investigation that occurred when Sissy was around first grade or something like that? Yeah.
Yes.
And then the judge then saw the scene of the children being removed from the home, living in grandmother's house. But then you jump too far ahead, Alana, from grandmother's house to her not doing well and the sisters being removed. But that wasn't for a while, right?
Right.
So go back to the initial, her living, because she lives with the grandmother for how long, guys?
At least
Before the grandmother goes.
At least 3 years, probably.
Right, right. So besides looking at this personal and family history section, you have educational history, because she's, you know, with the grandmother for a bit there, and, you know, so you can, you know, try to, I know it's hard.
Let's see.
So the last question had to do with them being placed with grandmother. Okay, so where would you go next?
How Sissy responded living with her grandmother?
Okay, yeah. How did you do?
I think it went smoothly for her, and she was with her sisters and the great-grandmother. They had very warm relationship, so I think it worked well.
Was she going to school at the time?
Yes, she was going to school, and she was a good student, decent student.
So then maybe was she showing any side effects of the abandonment or the drug or the domestic abuse at this time?
She was not a victim of a domestic abuse at that time, while living with her great-grandmother. And
How could you take it to the next scene? And the next scene being after living with grandmother.
What happened next?
Or you could say, how long did Sissy live with grandmother? And then she's then gonna say how grandmother wasn't feeling well, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
All right?
Okay. So how long did Sissy live with the grandmother?
about 3 years.
Okay, and where was she placed after that?
Unfortunately.
Why should be your next? All right, because, you know, why didn't you just stay with grandmother?
Unfortunately, 3 years later, her great-grandmother was hospitalized at the, she was hospitalized, so she wasn't available. She wasn't capable of taking care of the children, and as a result, the children were placed in.
So, stop, after taking care of the children. So, what happened to the children?
The children were placed in foster homes.
In the same foster home?
No, Sissy was separated from her 2 younger siblings for the first time.
Okay, so then how did Sissy deal with that separation?
It was very, very difficult. It affected her greatly. She was very unhappy, and it's also affected her performance at school. So it did had a huge effect, a negative one.
Now when I still continue.
Right, you want to take her through the various foster
Okay.
foster placements, and then at the same time, not the twins, the sisters' placement with separate foster home and then ultimately adoptive home. So you want to go back and forth between those two scenes.
Okay. So where was she placed at, where was Sissy placed after, after the first foster home she was placed in? I wanted to get to the part about like St. Vincent's home.
Right, but we also haven't heard that she actually was placed in 7
Okay.
temporary foster homes. So you want to get that in evidence somehow.
Okay, so
Okay?
where was she placed?
So over a period of 16 months, Sissy was placed in 7 different foster homes.
And why is that? So you can ask, why 7, you know, in 16 months? So she's gonna answer now, why?
3 homes were temporary 30-day placements, where Sissy was placed until a permanent foster home became available. Then Sissy was placed in a long-term foster home, and she had difficulty adjusting there.
Why?
She had nightmares, she appeared anxious, and really exhibited oppositional behavior. She probably missed her grandmother very much, and probably missed her sisters.
Okay, so where was she placed after that?
At age 12, Sissy was placed in St. Vincent's Home, a residential treatment facility.
Stop, wait, for the next question.
Okay. And then when she left the home, where did she then go to?
She was placed in a group home in Mattapan.
Okay, and did she eventually return to her grandmother?
Right, after 5 months, she, in the group home, Cece returned to her great-grandmother's.
And what was going on with their sisters at the time?
They stayed in the foster homes,
Okay.
foster home. But the grandmother insisted that Cece would continue living with her, and they had such a great relationship.
Okay, and were her sisters freed by the court for adoption?
Yes, that's correct. So Cece saw them.
Careful, careful, don't leave her.
Okay.
I didn't hear any objections, but
So while,
Leading the-
wait a minute, Danielle, who are you?
I'm just the mother.
Oh, yeah, okay, this is,
This is
okay.
all about me.
Okay.
You're enjoying.
I was saying, why aren't you
I'm
objecting?
not in jail, no, I'm the mother of the twins.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm 16.
So who were her, maybe just who were her sisters living with at this point?
while Cece was in St. Vincent's facility, these sisters were freed for adoption. And before that, the adoption was basically supposed to be done by the foster home.
Can we back up for a moment? So when Sissy and her sisters were first removed from the grandmother's home, you testified that Sissy at least had 7 temporary placements. Where did you say her sisters were at the time?
They were in a different foster home.
In a different foster home by themselves?
Right.
So they were in the same foster home?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And did Sissy get visitation with her sisters?
She saw them twice in a 2-year period,
Okay.
not frequent visitations.
Okay.
Okay, now how long did Sissy live with her grandmother?
For the next 2 years, approximately.
And was she in school during that time?
She was at school, and in the beginning she did really well. She
Wait, did you ask her that?
Objection.
Okay, sustained. Actually, I'll strike the part of the answer that wasn't responsive to the question.
So then, and how was her emotional behavior during this time?
At first she did well at home and in school. And then this behavior began to decompensate over time.
So, and it just starts with like the whole pregnancy issue, so that's.
Well, you might want to ask more about the school issues, right? Okay, we didn't hear that the chins was filed, we didn't hear that a core evaluation was done. That was all prior to her becoming pregnant, so we want to get that evidence in, right?
Alright, so. I don't know how to phrase it, that it wasn't me. How was her attendance at school?
Yeah, how was she doing at school? How was she doing at school? And she's gonna say she didn't go to school, therefore Chin's petition was filed, right, Marie?
Yes, it was filed for truancy, and Chin's petition was filed for truancy.
Okay.
Alright, and, was she, what grade is she completed?
How did she do after the Chin's petition was filed?
Ed Bunker's probation officer was at the Boston Juvenile Court. He was assigned to monitor Cece's progress. That she became pregnant.
That she became pregnant. All right, fine, all right. Are you finished with this witness? I guess you're finished. All right, how about cross-examination? And that would be you, Ashley, right? has already helped you, believe it or not. You testified, Marina, that, no, actually, let's start it this way. Is it fair to say that every time that Sissy was placed with her great-grandmother, she actually did very well?
Not the last time.
Answer that. Yes or no?
Almost, yes in the beginning.
Well, you did testify just a few moments ago.
Right.
That Sissy did pretty well with her grandmother.
She definitely did better with her grandma than under.
And her grandmother loved her very much, doesn't she?
Right, and she wanted them to live together.
And Sissy loves her grandmother as well.
Correct.
So we want to, sort of establish that relationship, because ultimately, both Sissy and the grandmother want to testify that they can help each other should she get the twins, because really, what does she have for a support system? Pretty much no one, except her ailing great-grandmother. So, I don't know what else you want to ask her about.
Is there any reason Sissy shouldn't be allowed to return to her great-grandmother?
We can see that even though there are good signs of this strong connection, we also can see that once Sissy was living with her grandmother, actually she stopped going to school as well, so her attendance was not.
Did you really want to ask an open-ended question like that? Do you probably want to ask a question that calls for a yes or no answer?
Okay. How did she do emotionally?
Okay, that's not,
No.
that's another open-ended question. You guys know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Cross-examination, you want to only ask questions that call for yes or no answer. Yes or no. I mean, I took a risk when I said, Sophia says she always does well, and she was like, well, not always, but she did testify earlier of some good things about her grandmother, so I don't want to sort of go that route.
But can't you also, as an attorney,
Shh. You can direct it to the class if you want.
He was asking about the type of question,
Yeah.
when you have direct questions of the who, what, where.
Which is what Alana was doing with her
Right,
witness.
and he was, and so Norm was asking, could she ask that, and I said, well, usually more on cross, you're gonna ask, you can ask leading questions, you definitely wanna get more of a, isn't that right, yes or no? type
And
of
why?
answer.
What's the purpose of that? Why is cross different from direct?
Well, the witness is basically.
That person is not your
Not
witness.
real.
That's the bottom line. That person is not, you want to be the one testifying, basically. On cross-examination, you are testifying, the attorney's testifying. You're asking leading questions to which he or she is agreeing or not agreeing. And most of the time, you should be asking questions that you already know the answer to, right? So there's one thing that you know, and I'm going to have you think of how you're going to phrase it, Ashley. You know that, what's her name, Sissy took care of her younger sisters. She already has this. Marina knows it because she's worked with the family before. So how can you sort of get her to agree with you, at least about the relationship with the sisters? Because she doesn't know anything about the relationship with the babies, but she does know about the relationship with the sisters.
Right.
So go ahead, ask her something about it.
So, before Sissy and her sisters were taken from their parents, Sissy is the person who tended to look after her sisters and.
Stop right there, correct? That's good, correct? And Marina,
Yes.
you have to say yes.
Yes.
Okay, so keep going with that.
Okay.
Alina, actually, you want to help her because you're on her side too, being the children's attorney.
And
Yeah, go ahead, interject if you want.
when Sissy became pregnant, she attended some pregnancy classes, correct?
Yes.
Did she was,
Wait, you can't ask her about about pregnancy. No, she doesn't know anything. Lily's gonna,
Oh,
we haven't
she
heard
doesn't.
about that yet. Okay. Ask her some more about her sisters. No, do you feel you already made your point with that one question? If that's the case,
Yeah.
fine, go ahead. Move on, or Alina? You thought that was enough?
The problem is I don't ask her.
What? What?
The problem is I keep wanting to ask her questions about the pregnancy and her kids and.
She hasn't testified about
I
that.
know.
But she knows about the relationship between Sissy and her sisters.
After Sissy was separated from her sister, did that affect her negatively, correct?
Correct.
After she was separated from her sister, she started experiencing depression, correct?
Correct.
Was that decision of a department to limit the visitation between Sissy and her sisters to just 2 visits a year?
Not really. It was not a decision, it just happened for some.
Was it at the, was it Sissy's decision that she didn't want to see her sisters, or was it department decision that to limit her visitation?
It wasn't Cece's decision and it wasn't the department decision, it just happened that way that was an arrangement with the foster home, so they couldn't establish those visits, so it's basically it's just the way it happened for some reasons.
Is there anything else you guys should be asking? Okay. Anything about her school issues or?
How many different schools Sissy attend during the 16?
It's that, again, that's open-ended. You already know the answer, so you say it and have her agree to it. Remember how I started, that she tends to do better with grandmother. So if you know specifically the specific school, or there was some period of time where she did better by going to school because she was with grandmother, if you could somehow tie that in and get her to say, oh, yes. That's all you want her to say is yes or no.
What if this is not exactly an accurate question?
What's
For
that?
instance, what if the question is not exactly accurate? Like, it was a depression question, but it was not.
Then you're gonna answer saying, then you're gonna try and qualify the answer. There might be an objection after that, or there might be a motion to strike. But if you don't understand the question as a witness, you're gonna say you don't understand it. If you wanna attempt to say, well, not really, but, and try to explain it as a witness, sure, you can try and do so. You leave it up to the attorneys to object above the form of your answer. You know what I'm saying?
Right, because she wasn't diagnosed with depression. But Cece wasn't diagnosed with depression, but she
Who
was.
asked you that? Why are you bringing that up?
No, because depression is a very strong word. She didn't have depression. She was not diagnosed
Yeah, but
with
did
depression.
Alina just go that? I don't know
No,
why you're
I
bringing
asked.
this up. Oh, Ashley did. Oh, okay,
It was
okay.
later.
Oh, okay.
I
And
asked
you said
earlier.
something about depression earlier?
Yeah, was she depressed?
I
Oh.
asked if she was depressed when she was taking
And
it
then,
in her
Alina,
sister's.
Marina, you would have said, well, no, there was no diagnosis of depression, and
She
so
had
your answer
nightmares.
would then have been no,
Right, but
right?
she wasn't happy. She had nightmares.
Right,
There was
yeah.
like different. So
Yeah.
in that case, I'm allowed to describe this.
You do whatever as a witness, knowing the facts, right? But if you're asked a question that to you is clear, and it should be, that it calls for yes or no, you'll be answering yes or no. It's not your fault if the question is not asked that way. You'll answer it as in relation to how it's asked, right?
All right.
Okay?
Okay, is it true that Sissy was placed in 7 foster homes over a 16 months period?
Yes, correct.
Is it true that 3 out of 7 foster homes were short, temporary, 30 days placements?
Yes.
Is it true that Sissy has to change schools every time that she was moved?
Yes.
Is it true that when Sissy was placed in a long-term foster home, she was having problem adjusting?
Yes.
And is it possible that this could be related to her sadness of the loss of being removed from both her grandmother and her sister's?
Would it be leading?
You are leading.
You can be.
This is cross-exam, you have to lead. You have to lead. This is cross-examination.
Oh, yeah. That's not my-
Just consider.
So I might have gone too much. She might disagree with that question. So I'll withdraw it and let you go on.
Was that, when Sissy was placed in the long-term foster home, was that at the time when her sisters were put for adoption?
Yes.
Good, good.
Was her nightmares and her change in behavior, that she appeared anxious, were in time, were during the time when she was not being able to see her sisters?
Yes.
Ask her about her tendency to go to school when she knew she'd be with her grandmother.
I just want to get to you right
Okay.
now. Did Sissy go to live with her great grandmother in when the first possibility of such possibility was available to her?
Yes.
Did Sissy attend public school? When Sissy moved to her great-grandmother, did she go to the same school she attended before she moved?
How about this? You asked before about when she got moved from foster home to foster home. She kept going to different schools and whatnot. And I know you wanted from there to lead into Sissy's tendency to skip school, and then from there, Sissy's lack of attendance improving when she is in grandmother's care. Do you see where that might sort of segment into each other? And
Then
come
how
back
would
to her
I,
doing?
how would
yeah.
I justify that she did good at school first, but then she started to skip schools?
That's what I'm saying. She started to skip schools, but you know how she goes from grandmother to foster homes and back to grandmother again. And even though there are still some issues when she's back to grandmother again, because the chins does get filed and
Yeah.
whatnot, her attendance starts to improve because she fears that, you know, she's gonna be yanked again. So I don't know if there's any way that you guys might be able, you know, both you and Ashley, be able to sort of use that fact.
What is the question?
I'm asking them to
It's
think
hard,
about the
it's hard
question.
to do that because we don't have enough facts unless
Make something up.
she can make something up.
Go ahead.
Recently, Sissy has improved her attendance at school. Is that correct?
No. Who's the next one?
Initially it says.
Initially.
But
Go ahead, Ashley. Try to discredit her. You can go back to her testimony too, if you remember anything about what she said. You can say, oh, you testified that, blah, blah, blah.
it's in the
I did hear, did I not, did Marina not testify earlier about how, Sissy tends to do better with grandmother, she tends to go to school more often than when she's in foster homes. That's the only point, really. She's not 100% there, but she does tend to do better when she's with grandmother. That's the bottom line. All right,
Isn't that
let's
true
let
that
her- Let's
Sissy-
let her go.
That
We've
when
done enough.
Sissy moved to
Yeah.
her great-grandmother, did she start to attend school, her attendance improved? Is that true?
At first, her attendance did improve, and emotional.
I'm asking you a question. First, when she moved
At
to
first, yes.
great-grandmother's house, her
Yes.
attendance improved. The only question.
Danielle, say it out loud.
Well, the only reason why her attendance went down was because they were forcing her into a school she didn't want to go to and attend. So you can use it. It had nothing to do with the grandmother's house and the placement. It had to do with the educational system that had failed her whole life to begin with, and now they're
So
trying to.
how do you get that,
Where
how
do
do you
you
get
see
this
that?
one to, well, maybe you're gonna say it as the witness after, because it
Under
seems like they did the
educational
best they
history?
could, both,
It's after the core evaluation, they demanded she went to a school that she didn't want to attend, and that's why she got the chins filed on her. So maybe try to direct it that way. Isn't it true that the reason why?
Wait, you ask it, pretend you're one of them. Go ahead.
Isn't it true that the reason why she started failing in school was because the Department of Education was demanding her attend a school she wasn't comfortable attending?
Right, she didn't like technical high school.
Okay, there you go. And then you'll testify in more detail as Sissy yourself.
Okay.
All right. This witness can be excused. Yes. Okay, Alana, you need to call your next witness.
You never reset. Okay. We called Lily, the DACF worker assigned to Sissy when she first became pregnant. So, Lily, explain how you first came in contact with Sissy.
Well, I was assigned by Boston Juvenile Court to monitor her progress throughout her pregnancy.
Okay. And what did you find?
Well, at the time, was she going to school?
At the time, was she going to school?
No.
Was she supposed to be going to school?
Yes. She was truant.
Should I stick with the school thing?
Whatever you want to do, I'm
Okay.
sorry, go ahead.
So nervous. Okay, all my questions are horrible. Are the twins, currently placed with Sissy?
No, they are not. We removed the twins and put them in a foster home in Quincy.
Why did you do that?
Because
Make it good.
at the time she's 16 years old, and we felt that she was not fit to be a parent.
Okay. Now, does Sissy see the twins at all?
Yes, she sees them once a month for 1 hour supervised visits.
Okay. That's
services did you offer her when she
Okay.
became pregnant?
We offered her parenting classes.
What education, start with education, I know I keep going back to that, but, what educational services did you offer her?
Was that the McKinley thing?
Yes, no, the Crittenden has Hastings.
Wait, the what?
The
Oh, the
Crittenden Hastings, I'm sorry.
We offered her an educational program for pregnant young mothers to go to, and she went to them pretty regularly until she gave birth to those twins.
And where was she living at the time then?
She was in a foster home.
Okay, and is she still attending, any of the education services you have provided her with?
No, she's not.
Have you provided her with any, work assistance programs, any work services?
Yes.
And has she taken part in any of that?
Some.
Okay. Is it likely that she would be able to gain employment in order to support herself and her
Probably
twins?
not, because she.
Objection.
Okay, to what? What's the basis?
Leading.
Leading?
Okay, the same.
Okay. So-
Withdraw your question and ask.
I withdraw it. I want to ask it. Let's see. Does she currently have a job?
No.
And she is not currently in school?
No, she's not.
Okay. Oh yes. What was her last education level completed?
Well, she was given all failing grades and promoted to 10th grade, which promoted to 10th grade with failing grades.
Now, it was the recommendation of the department that she be placed in a .5 private special education school setting. How did that go over?
She was frequently tardy, but she went to some of them.
Oh, okay, good. And was she having, was she experiencing any emotional difficulties during this time?
Yeah, absolutely. She had a lot of emotional difficulties. There are people who have noticed that throughout her schooling years, she was sad and depressed, and as she got older, her behavior was more aggressive and oppositional. And it seems like she can't concentrate.
Okay, now has she been suicidal at all?
Yeah, she has. She was put on suicide watch at some point, but she was deemed to be not having a huge suicidal threat, but she had suicidal thoughts.
Right, now when was her most recent suicide threat that she had made? Was it before or after the twins were born?
After?
Okay. Now, do we have it, are you aware of anyone, does she have a social support group, does she have any family, does she have anybody to help support?
No, she doesn't, because she was placed in multiple different foster homes, and she was away from any type of support system, so she's basically alone.
Now, what about the father and his family?
He's out of the picture.
Alright, what about his family?
The parental grandmother had expressed interest in adopting the twins.
Okay, and have you met with her?
Nope.
Not her job.
Oh, I don't
There'll be an
know.
adoption worker, a
Oh,
separate.
okay, so she has nothing to do with that then, okay, so I'll do that, I'll do that. Does anybody have any other questions
All right.
for her?
Cross.
Susie attended classes at attendance was regular, correct?
No, it wasn't. Was it? Oh, okay, yes.
It wasn't until after she left Crittenden Hastings that she failed to continue her education, correct?
That's correct.
If Sissy,
Say what you need to say.
would it be fair to say that if,
Doing good.
if Sissy was sent back to Crittenden Hastings House for a long-term placement, she would continue her education?
It's possible.
And ask the next question about all the services that Crittenden.
Crittenden Hastings House provides women with healthcare and nutritional information, counseling, childcare.
Isn't that correct?
Isn't that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And it also.
And Sissy would receive those services were she there. Yes.
Yes.
Sissy would be able to live at the Crittenden Hastings House with her 2 children, correct?
Correct.
And would it be fair to say that as a result of the counseling and information and education that she would be receiving there, Sissy could become a fit parent?
Too far. Stop before that question. You're done. You're done. You did well. Are there any other questions that we have? Okay.
Sissy, when Sissy was attending McKinley School, after the Chin's report was filed, and when she became pregnant, did she start to attend school regularly? Is that correct?
No, she wasn't attending school regularly.
It says here, Sissy began to go into McKinley.
Isn't it true
because
that
Is not true that
go ahead, say it.
is not true when she was feared to be moved from her great grandmother's house, she started to attend McKinley School regularly?
Yes.
Is not true that according to Boston Juvenile Court Clinic, Sissy is not found to be in immediate danger of harming herself.
Yes, that's correct.
It's not true that Sissy herself attributed her suicidal feelings and thoughts to the idea that she may be separated from her kids.
Yes.
When Sissy gave birth to her twins, is that true that Sissy and her twin daughters were separated right after she gave birth to her children?
Yes.
Isn't that true that they were put in, Sissy and her children were put in 2 separate foster homes with a great distance one from it?
That's correct.
Isn't that true that Sissy had an opportunity to visit her children infrequently because of the distance between the 2 foster homes?
Maybe.
Does Sissy have any means of transportation to, does she have a car?
No.
Okay. Is that all, Councilman? All right. Daniel, do you want to add to that?
No, I was just saying, I thought that 1 month was more court-ordered, so I would guess you'd want to say something more along the lines of, isn't it true that the
court wouldn't know to visitate, DCF has
I mean,
custody, so
right,
DCF
they're-
controls the visitation.
Right, I don't think it was from the driving, I think it was more from what DCF had decided was appropriate, so maybe something like, isn't it true that DCF decided only 1 hour a
Well,
month?
Yeah, throw their regulations in their base.
Yeah.
You know, doesn't the department have a first of all, she made a really good point about the whole placement in separate foster homes. Oh, isn't it policy of the department to keep families together normally? And isn't it normally? Yes. And isn't it also the policy of the department for, once the department has custody of children, to make every effort possible for children and their parents to visit with each other? Yes. Yet, Sissy, who just gave birth to these twin girls, has only been able to see them due to the department's whatever, once a month, you know, so. I thought that Ashley and Alina, that last set of cross-examination was, you made some really good points. But Norman, we have about 5 minutes. Should we?
Respectfully request an adjournment.
Alana, do you want to wait and do direct exam of Norm on Thursday, or do you want to start now, or?
Well, I really only had a couple of questions, so it's up to you.
Do you want to think of a few more questions and do more extensive
I could do that, yes.
questioning for Thursday, and having seen, you know, and learned from the direct examination techniques today, I think that will help you if you wait, and Norman as well. So we'll reserve maybe the first 10 minutes for Norman's testimony, then you'll rest. Then Ashley, you will start with, let's hold Danielle for last, as she's, you know, your client, so you'll have Kelly as your sort of expert, the court-appointed investigator, which, by the way, she's the court-appointed investigator, so you can lead her. Both sides can lead her, all right? She wrote this whole thing, so you could be looking right at it, whatever, all right? And then, who's your other witness? Oh, Elizabeth. Who are you, Elizabeth?
The great
Oh,
grandmother.
yeah. And then Danielle will be last, okay? So court-appointed investigator, grandmother, and then mother. All right, thank you.
What do I do now? Do I participate in the cross or
yeah.
direct? What,
Yeah.
there's a
The rest of those?
cross of, cross, okay.